Hello and welcome to Radicals and Roots. My name is Kathleen Sharkey and I'm going to walk you through my course corrections for my Algebra 1 class over Radicals and Roots. I currently teach at Hinsdale Central and this is my second year teaching Algebra 1. At the beginning of this course, we created a blueprint to discuss my outline of my course. If we click on this link, it's going to take us to my revised radical blueprint. My overall course goal is students will be able to perform operations on radicals, solve radical equations, solve radical applications, and graph radical equations. Throughout this course, the building blocks were built off of Merrill's principle of instruction and cognitism. After redoing my learning objectives using Bloom's taxonomy, I have revamped them so they are all at least 40% or higher level thinking. And I have a variety of different activities that we're going to investigate 2 of my struggling students. For this specific course, I have analyzed the work of freshman students. These students are currently struggling in Algebra 1 that is considered in a hybrid classroom of periods that last 45 minutes long. Let's dive deep into the activities that I used to gather data from my struggling students. Throughout the course, there are different evaluation techniques that are used through the pre-course, the in-course, and the post-course. In each level, there's a variety of formative assessments that are used to gather data. I believe the mixed method here will provide the best results for me to identify my struggling students. I have a variety of qualitative data and quantitative data that I have used to determine my 2 struggling students. Chickering and Gamson's 7 Principles of Good Practice in Undergrad Education are a really good tool to help me determine my struggling students. I use these principles as the building blocks to identify and communicate with my struggling students. To begin with, one example of each day, I assign an assignment called My Open Math. Students are given instant feedback right away, and this is an example of student A and student B. Student A received a 33.3% and student B received a 50%. If I head to my overall class item analysis here, this is over the same assignment. When I look at this, I overall think my kids or my students did quite well. 95% got the first one right, 99% got the second right. All of my percents are quite high. But I had to dig a little deeper to determine that I have 2 struggling students, which we will call student A and student B. Following Chickering and Gamson's 7 principles, the most important is to encourage contact, I believe, between the students and the faculty or the instructor. In this case, right away, this was day 1 of the unit, having a student receiving a 33% and a 50% means they have not acquired enough skills to move on to the next day. Simplifying radicals is necessary to continue on through my blueprint, which is an 11-day course. In order to be successful to build upon multiplying, adding, subtracting, and even solving equations or real-world examples, it's necessary that students have the potential skills from day 1 on. So communicating with my students right away is extremely necessary. On day 2, according to my blueprint, we have the opportunity for small group practice and a Jamboard color and a My Open Math practice. Day 2 is a review of day 1. As mentioned before, simplifying radicals are a huge deal when we start getting towards operations with radicals. During day 2, with my 2 struggling students, student A and student B, I felt it was necessary to intervene. Communication is number 1, so during the small group practice, I made sure that I paired student A and student B together. This gave me the opportunity to identify their misconceptions and determine where their mistakes were met. Students then have the opportunity as well in the second MyOpen Math practice to determine if any of those misconceptions have been identified. As an educator, it is important that in this course, all of 7 principles of Chickering and Gamson's are met. Give prompt feedback. This is a huge deal, especially in this course, specifically mathematics. Things tend to build upon each other. Using the program MyOpen Math, students will be able to know right then and there after they finish each question whether they got the question right or wrong. For example, here's a preview of what students look at. Here's an example of a question. Let's say someone thought the answer was 5 square root 4. When the student hits submit, it automatically tells them it's wrong. And they'll see something like score 0 out of 1. Since I'm looking at the teacher version, I can see the correct answer, but students would not see the correct answer. They also have a video here if they would like to watch an example of a problem that's similar and how to break it down. Furthermore, besides getting the prompt feedback, it's important that we communicate these high expectations from the start. So when student A and student B see that they're getting a 33% and a 50%, they need to know that that's not okay. And that's not something that where I expect them to be at. So having these conversations as early on as possible is going to allow for more greater growth. During day 2, to make sure that students meet the learning objective for day 1, we have the opportunity to revisit that assignment that students were working on. So one of the cool things about this program, MyOpen Math, students are allowed to hit this question prompt that says new version. So therefore the student gets a problem that tests the same skill, but the numbers are different. Students can do this endless amounts of time, and it will regenerate thousands of different problems. So therefore, I will have the opportunity to work with these students, do a little reteaching, and to make sure that they can conquer these skills from day 1. A large majority of my blueprint includes an activity almost every day that has MyOpen Math. The MyOpen Math provides me the opportunity to double check right away whether students are conquering these learning objectives or failing with these learning objectives. And a little failure is okay at first. They need sometimes a little bit more practice to make sure they can get on the right page. Through all of this assessment and data collection, a lot of ethical considerations need to be incorporated. On my first day, I have students complete this intro Pear Deck, and I also have them complete Google Forms throughout the course. The intro Pear Deck includes opportunities for students to incorporate some SEL components. I want to know how they're feeling, their social emotional learning, and what's really going on with their life currently, outside of maybe the math world. For example, this came from student A. Student A cannot manage their emotions right now according to the Pear Deck. They also are saying that their bucket that's filling is playing lacrosse. What's draining it is they're failing some classes, so they're not eligible to play lacrosse. This is something that is in confidence to me that I do not want to spread to my other students, and I cannot make a generalization saying that all of my students are stressed out or can't manage their behaviors just from student A's example of their SEL check. On the Google form, the first one that I provide is not going to be anonymous. This is going to ask me, the teacher, to determine where are areas of improvement that I can do, and also the students. The Google form will walk them through a little mid-check. How are you feeling about math? What is one thing you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? What's your current grade? What are your missing assignments? If there's one thing you could change about this class, what would it be? When do you need extra help? And any questions that students may have. This data is going to inform instruction for the next following day. It's really important to determine what students like about radicals. Therefore, I can create some warm-up or incorporate something in the lesson, something that they feel strong about or what they enjoy. One thing that they do not enjoy is also important to incorporate to make sure that students are not avoiding it because they don't necessarily like it. One question I love to ask my students consistently throughout every unit is what could they change about the class? I always have an idea or a plan for each day, but the structure of the course could change, especially about the number of times I teach a class. So if I teach it multiple times in one day, things could change based on one experience in another class as well. One of the readings this week by Peterson is a teacher, I believe, at Illinois State University, which was my undergrad, so woot woot, go Redbirds. But she talks about how important it is to incorporate formative assessments throughout. One key piece that I like to include in the post-course is specifically anonymous. And this is meant, it's another Google form. This is meant for students to be honest, and this can help inform my instruction in the future. So having them rate their overall experience, provide a rationale, and the big things you feel like you have accomplished the learning targets. I think having students take time to self-assess, what were the learning targets? Did I meet them? Was I able to accomplish them all? Having them self-reflect and assess also provides me data on whether I think they have as well. Overall, for my two struggling students, Student A and Student B on day 1, after identifying their weaknesses on day 1, we were able to correct their mistakes by day 2. Allowing for that made them grow their confidence when we got to day 3, day 4, and etc., all the way to the end of the unit. Identifying these mistakes early on, mainly through the MyOpenMath practice, allows me the opportunity to touch base, meet with kids, have them reflect on their Google Forms, just to make sure that I'm meeting their needs so they are successful in this course.